Anime begins in Japan with an orphan boy named Kazuya. He was on his way to a convenience store to get a meal for himself when he saw a thug who was about to attack two girls. So he jumped in to save them, and in the process, he got stabbed by the thug and died. But at least he was happy he saved the two girls behind him. With that, he opened his eyes in a whole new world as a 3-year-old boy named Kane. Naturally, Kane freaked out seeing himself as a whole new person, and his mother, Sylvia, thought it was a normal reaction since Kane was unconscious for a week. That's why they left to bring some soup for him. So, in some alone time, Kane at least got the gist of the situation, that he had been reincarnated after saving those girls. While checking himself out, Sylvia came in and thought Kane needed a nappy change. After that, he got many answers out of Sylvia. He's the son of Graham and Sarah, and he has a 2-year-old sister, Rain. Sarah is Graham's second wife, and from his first wife, he has 2 sons, making Kane the 3rd son of a high-ranking noble. Graham is a margrave who oversees the south of the kingdom and defends against monsters with adventurers. Kane got excited hearing all about magic and such, but he was still too young to try it out. For the time being, Kane showed his ability to study and asked for some books about magic. However, they still disapproved because a person must be baptized at the age of 5 to use magic, though Kane had already learned a basic spell. After that, he began to learn more about the kingdom's history and how it was founded by the first king named Yuya, a Japanese name, and how all sorts of fantasy beings exist in this world. 2 years flew by in a flash, and now Kane was on his way to the church to be baptized. After baptism, everyone gets a status window, and Rain showed Kane how it looks. There was a title Kane saw on Rain's status, which she quickly hid. Then they came to church for the blessings, and just as Kane took a knee, all the statues began to shine, and Kane woke up in front of all 7 gods. The god of reincarnation told him that it wasn't necessary to stop that thug. He could have fallen down, and the thug would have been subdued by the people. So, in simple words, Kane died a meaningless death. But because it was a good deed, the god of earth asked her to reincarnate Kane here. Kane liked his new life with his family, so seeing that, all the gods, one by one, gave their blessings to Kane. Afterward, Graham wanted to take a look at Kane's status. But Kane made up an excuse that he had a stomach ache and ran off to see his status privately. He saw his level was off the charts. Normally, level 5 is the highest, but Kane was at level 10, not to mention the blessings of 7 gods and the title of God's Chosen. At least the god of creation gave him a camouflage skill with which he hid all his titles. But he forgot to hide his magic power, the item box, and the judgment skill, which is also overpowered. That's why Graham asked his butler and Sylvia to never speak of this to anyone else. That sums it up for today's ruckus, and Kane saw a summoning book in his room and decided to give it a try. He successfully summoned a monster in his backyard, but Rain and Parma got caught up in it. Kane jumped in and saved them from the monster, but he took some damage. Nothing too serious. He asked Rain to hide this from their parents. Time flew by, and Kane turned 5 years old and decided to become an adventurer. Graham made arrangements to call some tutors for Kane's training. In his excitement to meet them, Kane jumped out of the window and fell on his teacher. She thought Kane needed nursing, but that was a misunderstanding. Millie and Na were both D-rank adventurers who took Kane to the training grounds. They were shocked by Kane's swordsmanship skill. Millie challenged Kane herself and quickly got tired. Then he showed his magic power, which shocked them even more. Na and Millie were confused because the kid had blessings from both the god of magic and the god of swordsmanship, plus the item box. They didn't know what to teach him, so they asked Graham for permission to leave the mansion. Otherwise, Kane might accidentally destroy it. After getting to a safe distance, Kane unleashed his mini fire spell, which wasn't mini at all, leaving the girls speechless. Millie and Na thought Kane should be tired after casting such a big spell, but Kane still had enough MP to cast more. Suddenly, a fanged rabbit attacked them, and Kane killed it with wind bullets. It was his first kill, so he excitedly showed it to his family. Nina used a search spell to locate more monsters, and Kane copied the spell just by seeing her cast it. They killed more monsters, but when Kane tried to follow one, Millie stopped him, warning that the forest is filled with strong monsters and that monster outbreaks happen every few decades. The next day, Cain went to the Adventurers Guild with Millie and Nina to get more info on the monsters. There, he saw a cute dog girl receptionist who found Cain adorable. Sadly, some goons came in and started molesting Na and Millie. Cain stepped in, beat the heck out of them, and threw all the trash out. Na was glad nothing happened to Cain. As time passed, Millie and Na's contract to train Cain was coming to an end. As a parting gift, Cain hunted down a dragon and an ogre to create a magic bag for them. But a soldier saw the destruction and thought a monster outbreak was happening, warning the whole town. All the troops followed Graham's lead to save the town, but when Graham arrived at the scene, he saw a handkerchief with his household emblem. On the last day of training, Cain gave Millie and Na the magic bag they had always wanted, which could fit an entire mansion, making it a national-level treasure. However, Cain had installed a security system that only the three of them could use, making it even more precious. Still, Millie and Na were happy to receive it. With that, they went their separate ways. Later that day, Graham scolded Cain for a good hour and a half after discovering Cain was responsible for the destruction in the monster forest. Cain continued adventuring and even hunted down a red dragon. Now that he had turned 10, Cain was on his way to the royal capital to make his debut in noble society. Through search magic, he sensed a large group of monsters attacking people. Graham sent his men ahead, but Cain arrived first and saw at least 50 monsters killing knights. Cain saved them all, but the knights were wary of him. Cain introduced himself as the son of Graham, and Graham's knights arrived to confirm his identity. Cain healed the surviving knights and stored the bodies of the fallen. When Graham arrived, he saw the carriage had the emblem of Duke Santana. Inside was the Duke's daughter, Miss Silk, and the King's daughter, Princess Tellys, both beauties. They were still scared, so Cain used a relaxing spell to calm them. Impressed by Cain, both girls started fawning over him and fighting for his attention. Confidently, both girls were also on their way to their debut and dragged Cain to ride with them. Both sat close to Cain and didn't let him sit elsewhere. They asked him to call them by their first names, and they wouldn't take no for an answer, so Cain had to agree. They stopped at an inn to spend the night, but Silk and Tellys didn't want to be separated from Cain. Graham tried to explain it was inappropriate for a boy to stay with two girls, but the girls insisted they were still scared after witnessing the earlier attack. Cain had to give in and stay with them in their room. Silk and Tellys joined their bed with Cain's to sleep side by side. It was a good situation for a newcomer like Cain, but it made him anxious, so he stayed up all night while they cuddled him. The next day, they arrived at the capital safely. But the girls still didn't want to be separated from Cain. In front of the vice-captain of the Royal Knights Order, Demi von Gazard, Cain was thanked for saving Silk and Tellys, as well as for bringing the fallen knights back. Cain was about to leave, but Demi stopped him because Cain still had to meet the king. Cain went to the royal court, where the king heard that Cain had defeated 50 orcs to save Silk and Tellys, and also brought back the bodies of the fallen knights. For his bravery, the king granted Cain the title of Baron, 10 platinum coins, and his own mansion. Naturally, some objected to giving a 10-year-old the title of Baron, but the king silenced them. Afterward, the king called Cain and Graham to the parlor for a private talk. Duke Eric once again thanked Cain for saving Silk and Tellys. Then, both fathers offered their daughters' hands in marriage to Cain. Surprised, Cain was reminded by the king of everything that had happened. If word got out that Silk and Tellys had slept with Cain, no one would marry them. That's why they wanted Cain to take responsibility. With no way out, Cain accepted the engagement with both Silk and Tellys. Both girls were happy, and they began recalling what had happened that night. As the story continues, Cain goes to the gods to discuss his status, which was inhumanly powerful. Zenos, one of the gods, suggested that Cain become a demigod. But first, Zenos asked Cain to bring some kind of entertainment to the world, like a game. Cain thought about it and ran off from the girls, who were shopping outside. There, he met Parma, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. She was helping her uncle with his shop, which sold various unique items. Cain asked Tanis to build a game of reversi, showing him how it should look. Tanis agreed to give it a try. While Cain was leaving, his sister Rain was waiting for him outside, upset that he had bailed on her. But Cain sweet-talked her with compliments, and she forgave him. Rain showed him all the dresses she had bought, but Cain quickly grew tired of it. The next day, Tanis called Cain and showed him the finished product, a perfect replica of the game. Cain showed Tanis how to play, and Tanis instantly saw the potential for future profits. Cain suggested creating 2 versions of the game, one for nobles and one for commoners, which would increase sales. The only problem was funding, but Cain covered the costs immediately. Tanis then signed the contract under the name of the god of commerce. The game became a huge success, even among the 7 gods. In the midst of all this, Cain forgot about his debut ceremony. He quickly got ready and arrived at the royal castle, where all noble children make their debut. At the event, Cain ran into Skier again, but avoided him. He met Silk and Eric, and Silk's father gave Cain a warning smile as they pretended to meet for the first time to keep Cain and Silk's engagement a secret. Cain, however, couldn't help but charm Silk with compliments, like a smooth player. Graham, observing, told Eric that Cain was used to complimenting Rain, as the tomboy could get upset otherwise. Soon after, the king, his wife, and their daughter made their grand entrance. One by one, the nobles gathered to greet them. When Cain's turn came, he charmed the king's family just as he had with Silk. Even the king was surprised by how good Cain was with the ladies, who ordered Cain to meet him after the party to discuss the future. Afterward, Sarah and Graham mingled with other nobles while Silk stayed with Cain. Teles was still busy, so Cain and Silk hit it off like a natural couple. Cain asked Silk to call him by his name without any titles. Just then, Koran's son approached, expecting Silk to fawn over him. However, Koran's son and his friends tried to look down on Cain. They thought Cain's father was merely a baron, the lowest-ranking noble, and demanded Cain apologize for addressing the son of a count too casually. Cain tried to calm him down, but Koran's son challenged Cain to teach him a lesson, confident in his magic skills. One of the boys cast a mini fireball, but it was laughably weak. The second boy attempted the same, but it too was unimpressive. Silk intervened, revealing that Cain was not just any baron, but the son of Margrave Graham, and that he had saved her and Teles from 50 orcs. This revelation shocked the boys, who quickly ran off, embarrassed. Silk knew Cain had been playing with them all along. Soon after, Cain received the key to his new mansion from Prime Minister Magna. Excited, Cain rushed off to check out his new home, only to find it in a rundown state. Using his magic, Cain fixed and remodeled the entire mansion, repairing everything in record time. His personal maid, Sylvia, arrived with a few other maids and a butler, ready to start the cleanup, only to find that Cain had already done it himself. Colin then reminded Cain that his brothers were coming to visit. Cain hurried to his other home to meet Jean and Albec, his older brothers from Graham's first marriage. Both brothers were proud of Cain for earning a noble title and a mansion. After meeting them, Cain took his father, mother, and sister to see the mansion. They liked the place, but felt it was too empty without decorations. Graham casually suggested Cain decorate it with paintings, vases, or even monsters. Cain decided to place a monster he had hunted in the hallway. Soon after, they heard a scream. Cain and Graham rushed downstairs to find that Cain had put down a red dragon, a creature so dangerous that even an A-rank adventurer party would struggle to defeat it. Then, they heard another scream. This time it was Sarah, shocked to discover a modern toilet system that worked automatically. Graham was confident that visitors to Cain's mansion would be very impressed. Cain didn't know that all nobles who own a house are expected to host a small gathering as a debut party. Since Cain had become a baron, he needed to arrange this gathering as well. However, he couldn't invite the king because only counts or higher-ranked nobles could extend an invitation to the king. The king, however, called Cain because he hadn't received an invitation. Cain quickly made up an excuse, saying he wanted to give the invitation in person. This saved him from a potential disaster, and he handed the invitation to the king. The night of the party began, and everyone loved the food and drinks Cain had prepared. The queen especially loved the toilet system Cain had installed. The king, curious about the toilet's functionality, tried it himself, and afterward told Cain to upgrade the royal castle's toilets in the same way. Everything was going smoothly, and the guests were pleased with the party and its arrangements. However, Cornel arrived, looking to stir up trouble. He never liked Cain from the start and insulted everything Cain offered, calling him a disgusting pig. Cain stalled him until the king arrived. Seeing the king, Cornel quickly backed off, realizing he had overstepped. The king, aware of Cain's tactics, scolded him for using him as leverage. But for today, our video ends here. Stay tuned to watch the next part of the story.
One day, the new gate became a death game, making it impossible for players to log out, and our protagonist Shin kept fighting to beat the game. We then see Shin leaving to fight the final boss of the game, and his friends ask him to take care of himself. Afterward, Shin fights the final boss and tries to take its head, but the final boss dodges, and Shin only manages to cut off its wing. The boss then regenerates its wing, and Shin keeps on attacking. After a long battle, he chips down almost all of its HP and takes out the final boss with one of his skills. He then hears an announcement telling him that the dungeon has been cleared and that players can now log out. Shin is happy that it's finally over and uses a scroll to check if everyone is able to log out. He notices the names of players disappearing from the scroll, and one by one, all players log out, leaving him as the only one left. He then tries to log out as well, but notices a gate appearing behind him and wonders why there are still events happening in the game. Afterwards, Shin opens his eyes in a grassland and realizes that this place looks far too realistic to be a game. He checks the menu and notices he can still pull up game windows. He finds out his stats have improved significantly, likely because he defeated the final boss. He tries to log out now that he has beaten the game, but the logout option is gone. He also checks if anyone else is online, but the scroll doesn't work since he is not connected to the network. He thinks he shouldn't even be able to move if he's not connected and begins to wonder if this is reality. Unable to understand anything, he uses an item to locate his home base. On the way there, he notices a giant walled city that wasn't present before. Eventually, he arrives at his house and finds some guys trying to drag a girl away from it. As soon as they get her out of the barrier surrounding the house, a monster attacks them. The guys flee, leaving the girl behind, and she believes she's going to be killed. But Shin saves her and tells her he is home. The two of them talk inside the house, and the girl introduces herself as Tiara Lucent. She thanks Shin for saving her and asks if he knows her master. Shin doesn't know what she is talking about, but Tiara mentions that everyone knows the acting shopkeeper of the Moon Sanctum, named Schnee Rizar. Shin remembers that Schnee was one of his support characters and is surprised that the Moon Sanctum still exists. He confirms with Tiara that they're talking about the same person and tells her that he and Schnee go way back. He wonders where she is now, but Tiara says she can't share this information since they only just met, and those guys outside were also after her. She says she can take a message for Schnee, but it will cost him 1,000 jewels. Shin replies that he only has jails and shows her a jail coin. Tiara wonders if he just took it out of an item box and notes that only kings and elders of limited species can use them. She explains that gold jail coins are used to amplify magic and are worth at least 10 billion jewels. Shin thinks back to the game, where jails were the smallest currency. Tiara then asks who he is, and Shin simply states that he is a high human. Tiara is shocked and says the high humans went extinct long ago. She explains that there were once 6 high humans in this world, but they vanished during the dusk of prosperity 500 years ago. Shin wonders what that is, and Tiara explains that it was a historical event where many people disappeared, including the high humans. Shin realizes she must be talking about the mass logout event and understands that this world is now 500 years after the game ended. He thanks her for the information and gives her the jail coin. Tiara is hesitant to accept it and asks if he won't take it back, but Shin assures her he won't. She is delighted to hold the jail coin, and Shin notes it should be useful for her since elves use magic. Tiara asks if she looks like an elf to him, and Shin says she does. Tiara is surprised because her master even cast an illusion spell on her. Shin wonders why she would need to do that, and Tiara explains that black-haired elves are considered a symbol of misfortune. Because of this, monsters often attacked her, and her village exiled her. Her master rescued her and placed a barrier around the house, where she has lived for over a century. Shin realizes she was attacked earlier because of her curse and wonders if it can be removed. Tiara says her master is researching a way, but she's fine living in